circuit. Now, will that extra straight line speed
This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Pavlowski takes his first win of the season, while Olenek closes the gap slightly to Mick Claridge. For the neutral fan, it's hard not to feel good after Silverstone and the show it put on. Anyone hoping for some drama might be in luck once again, because Interlagos has been the scene of some infamous moments here in the Grand Prix Legends series. Mick has seen races slip away when tangling with his longtime rival Michel Dudignon, and countless drivers have fallen victim to the tricky curving acceleration zones of this Brazilian circuit. Is there yet another twist in this season's tale? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch Round 9 of the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legends series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Johan Van Abell. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Johan, welcome back to Brazil. It gives me a lot of joy to have you, of all people, tell us about Interlagos.
Autódromo José Carlos Pachi, the official name of Interlagos, has been Formula One's home in South America for the last 20 years. And the track was originally constructed in 1940 and saw Formula One cars racing in Sao Paulo for the very first time in 1972. And the original track, Joe, was enormous and reached almost 8 kilometers. But in 1990, a big configuration change meant that the length was roughly cut in half to create the 4.3 kilometer track we see today. And the track itself is phenomenal. It is one of the few anti-clockwise road circuits in the world and is characterized by the ebb and flow. You have to follow the curvature of the land at Interlagos, which means that when spectating from the main grandstand, you've got a perfect view of basically the whole track. For the Lotus 49, it will be a challenge today, however, because the amount of corners and height elevation means that you're always in danger of the car snapping away from you. At the same time, you can't really relax on the straights either, as they are curved just enough to be very sketchy in these cars. For us and the viewers, however, that means that there will be a lot of action today. And before we go to qualifying, let's show the people at home how challenging Interlagos can be from onboard the Lotus 49.
Apologies for that. Just a little bit of a technical difficulty with our recorded lap here around Interlagos. So As we try to get that sorted out, let's take the time to go through the championship standings. And of course, up at the top, it is still Mick Claridge, but Rob Olenek closes it to within 30 points. That's still a little less than a win, but a ways away. He's going to have to continue to chip away at that. Gary Thiel stays in third. Trengrid and Sadra also stay in fourth and fifth. There have been no changes up in the top five. What about the F2 Championship? Has anybody slotted around in that one, Johan?
Well, the Formula 2 Championship actually got a lot more exciting after the race last time in Silverstone, because P1 and P2, Hugh Haycox and Hideki Kufisto, both didn't score any points. They didn't show up. So the lead shrunk by 18 points compared to P3 Grant Petullo. Behind them, Colin Coker and Andrew Eng, they kind of strengthened their top 5 position, as their biggest rival Francisco Gutierrez didn't show up either. However, keep an eye on David Sanchez because he scored a podium last time around in Silverstone. That means that he closed the gap to himself in the top 5 to only 16 points. He is one of the drivers to watch.
And we, of course, keep a Constructors Championship in this series, which is effectively just a Nations Championship, which is how they did it back in '67. The U.S. still leads ahead of the U.K., even though we were at their home round last time. Claridge, unfortunately, finding trouble with traffic meant that he was not able to overtake them and the points in the Nations Cup. Germany jumps up 2 spots with Pawlowski's win, and that bumps Australia and Finland each down a spot to 4th and 5th. Now, of course, we always get new viewers here, and Johan, what are the race details for today's round?
Well, if you're a new viewer, welcome to the Lotus 49 World Championship. This is round 9 of our 12-round championship. The race today at Interlagos, it will be 22 laps. Round is 4.3 kilometer circuit. The setups of all the drivers are open. That means they can change it just to their liking to complete this very twisty circuit. And the points they pay out to 25th position.
Now, Amjad was able to pull the VHS tape out and get it spooled back into the cassette. So let's pull up that lap guide and show you what it's like from on board here at Interlagos.
All right, we're in the GSRC Lotus 49, so let's do a lap around Interlagos. Coming down the front stretch, the Senna S is going to provide a good passing opportunity, but drivers will find keeping the car stable at turn-in pretty tricky if they're pushing the limits, so some passes might go horribly wrong. After that, try to give yourself a nice wide entry to the Curva de Sol. You'll be feathering the throttle around this long, gentle sweeper, waiting until it's safe to get to the power. Try not to straddle the curb at the exit too much, and then you're flying down the Reta Aposta. At the end, the Descida del Lago will be another popular place for overtakes. The tricky thing is with the way the track falls away, the car loves to understeer in the midst of this double apexer. Though 4 and 5 are counted as 2 separate corners, they make for one single arc. Switch sides quickly, and then you approach Ferradura. And the 49, this is a medium speed bend, once again with 2 apexes to contend with. Don't worry about hitting the second one because you'll want to swing the car wide at the exit. You can use up a lot of the curb both on the entry to 8 and at its apex. This starts us into the slowest, most technical portion of the circuit. You'll immediately switch back through 9 where drivers might sometimes short shift to keep better traction on the little spurt down to the duckspill. This is definitely the slowest corner on the whole track, but it probably won't see a lot of overtakes in this car. Once again, there's very little time to switch sides, and you really need every inch of track to carry your speed through Magrulo. Let the car drift off to the curbing on the right, and then whoa it up for Zhongxiao. This is easily the most critical corner to nail your exit on. Find the grip with your right foot, but stay close to the edge of the track. With nearly no downforce, turn 14 becomes a big lift, whereas in almost every modern car, it's flat out. As soon as you're confident, floor it and then straighten out the final bend onto the front stretch. Hopefully you kept it all together and have now finished a lap around Interlagos.
That should give you an idea of the throttle control that is needed around this circuit. You're looking at our provisional pole sitter. He started a little late compared to everybody else, but he managed to sneak one in. And it looks like he is going to be faster than Michel Dudignon because Michel just finished his second lap and he was not able to overtake Claridge. We do have to keep half an eye on Pawlowski, and though I keep half an eye on the number 7, unfortunately, Pawlowski also putting his second lap in and not able to overtake Mick Claridge. So even though Mick has a whole other lap to go, he is sitting very pretty right now.
Absolutely. Interesting to see that both drivers, Michel and Roman Pavlovsky, both didn't go quicker on the second lap time. So let's see if over Trangerade, who we see on screen at the moment, who's currently busy with his second lap, and McLaren are doomed to have the same fate. They're both coming across really the last corner on this track on a very, very long curvature straight here. Now, normally this is flat out. These cars, you have to counter steer, make sure you don't spin out on board with over Trangerade. He will basically cross the start finish line right at the same time as McLaren does. Over Trangerade, he will not go quicker. 2/10 slower, and the same has to be said, Joe, for McLaren, also 2/10 slower in the second attempt.
I wonder if it's due to the weather, even though these cars aren't as susceptible to grip loss on these tires. It's 104 degrees on the surface of the track right now, so they've clearly got something to struggle with. Maybe that's why we saw on that onboard Trangerade having to counter steer so much. Don Good crosses the line, and his first timed lap is going to be a 33.7. That's in fact going to be the end of his, because his first lap overall unfortunately did not count for him. I think the only other driver ready to take a second timed lap is Stefan Schlacker, who's joined us once more. Currently sits in 12th with a 33 flat.
And let's see what Stefan can do with his lap. On screen we also see Matt Wright. He's not busy with his second lap, he's busy with his first lap. Took a little while before he finally came out. I'm actually wondering if this is his out lap or his first time lap. Let's hope it's the latter, because otherwise he will not have enough time for a real attempt in qualifying. Coming across the start finish line now, he's sitting in professional P22. Coming across the line, that's in P12. Good middle result from him. Let's switch back to Stefan Schlager on screen now. Because of Matt Wright's time, he's bumped down one position, but Stefan said he was getting quicker all week long, every lap that he took, and again, he goes quicker. He wins half a second, but only wins one position with that, at 32.5.
Yeah, quite a wide gap between the fields. From first to 18th, it's 3 seconds. And then if you go all the way back to 20th, it is indeed 5 seconds between drivers. But the time is up on the clock, so qualifying is effectively over here today. Let's go through our starting order. It is Mick Claridge who put it on the pole. He's got about a 10th over Michel Dudignon, but as we said, those two have tangled here before. Hopefully they don't run into each other, but give us a good show anyways. Pavlowski, coming off of a win, is going to be starting third next to Ove Trangerade in P4. Rob Olenek is fifth with Marco Kika on the outside of him in P6. Hugh Haycox, nice qualifying to start seventh with Daniel Sadro in eighth. Gary Teal will be ninth, unusually low for him, and Antonio Rodriguez rounds out your top 10.
Philip Urquhart just behind it in P11, just in front of Stefan Schlager and Matt Wright. Now the big gap that you were saying about, Joe, is also between Matt Wright and P14 Armin Weber. 7/10 of a second between those two drivers. Armin is just in front of Andrew Eng. Andrew shares row 8 with Andres Bruno. Row 9 behind him is Don Good and Grant Petullo. Row 10, the last two cars in the top 20, Colin Coker, Dave Cohen. They're the last two drivers with a timed lap, because behind them is David Sanchez and Steve Kitzman, both without a qualifying time.
And as always, you're watching this on the iRacing Esports Network. Make sure when you get the opportunities to subscribe. All you got to do is go to their YouTube page, click on the big red button that says subscribe, and then you'll get all of Grand Prix Legends Series races in your YouTube feed. You can see them already lining up on the grid, just waiting on Teal, Rodriguez, and Sanchez. Looking to see if we have any locals racing here today, and I'm not seeing any Brazilians in the group, unfortunately. So no local representation, but it should still be a fun show. A pretty big field, as you can see, with the grid lined up on that uphill run towards turn 1 into the Senna S. Do have at least one South American, I believe. We'll get back to that in a bit. As the clock ticks down, waiting for Sanchez. Sanchez to make his way out to the grid is the last one that we are waiting on. Now that he has joined up, the engines will start to rev because the lights are coming up. It's round 9 here in the Grand Prix Legends Series, and the green flag is out. Mick Claridge, not the best of starts, because Michel Dudignon gaining a little bit. Still weaves around to the outside as Mick covers him off, and Pawlowski gets a little bit of a shove, almost loses out on that third place. Ove Trangrade looking to take that. Most of the two wide, looks pretty safe through the Senna S. Not seeing any wrecks. It is clean through the first corners.
Yeah, there's Roman Pawlowski who loses control. The exit of the Senna S. Big crash behind him as well. Antonio Rodriguez spins it around. Several cars flying up in the air in the backfield.
Andrew Ang involved in that, it looks like. We'll come back to the replay in a little bit. I spoke too soon. That was a monstrous wreck. Looks like Interlagos delivers once again. Well, this gives a big gap between the top two and Ove Trangrade at the start. That will be good news for them, with the slipstream offering a little bit of something down the front stretch around those final corners. They're coming through the technical section right now, where you could try to stretch away with a little bit of racing prowess. Ove Trangrade looks like he's not able to do anything back there in third.
6 cars involved in a heavy crash. Roman Pawlowski, Daniel Cedro, Antonio Rodriguez, Andrew Eng, Andres Bruno and Don Good. A whole gaggle of cars retired. We can continue because there's still 16 going on. Let's go to a replay of that incident, however. It all started with Roman Pawlowski just losing control, Joe, on the exit of the Senna S.
Let's see what happened with Roman here. It's a little bit off the line. He swung a little wide and he got the curb, but usually that's not that big of an issue. It looks like really the biggest problem was the fact that he just bounced it right back into the track and he couldn't do anything to stop that. Oh, that was some serious air for someone. And Mick Claridge, what has happened to him? He's no longer leading. In fact, where did he go? He is in the pits right now. Oh, it was coming around the Subidos dos boxes.
The same thing basically as what happened with Roman Pawlowski, just losing. Oh no, he actually puts his wheels on the grass. Look at his wheels on the right hand side. Just slightly too wide. Just too much risk, and especially on lap 1 at the beginning of the race, a mistake like that. Oh, he is saying in the chat he was just paying attention at Michel de Leon, looking in the mirror and didn't pay attention to where he was going. And just understeered into the grass because of that, with that hefty crash as a result.
And who was that clipped him? Was that Kika? They got a piece of him? So we come back live. Well, regardless, this gives Michel Dudignan almost carte blanche out front. He's got 1.2 seconds over Ove Trangrade. Ove's keeping touch, but certainly not threatening. There you see the number 1 car braking into the Senna S and plunging back down the hill for another lap.
Just a quick update, that car that was hit by, because of that incident, he was not hit by Mick Claridge, but because the result of it was Hugh Haycox, so the leader in the Formula 2 Championship. He is involved in that accident as well. And that's actually big news for all the people behind him in the championship as well. With Hugh Haycox out, Hideko Visto could really profit here today. He's, however, not showing up, so Grant Patullo, he might actually be the one to make heavy gains in the Formula 2 Championship at Interlagos.
Let's actually go to Kika in P4. Oh, and just behind him as well, because it's been some fierce fighting for these spots. Stefan Schlacher just lost out to Gary Thiel. And you might think that Steph would be upset about that, but honestly, he's gone from 12th to 6th position right now. So he's gained a lot from all the carnage that has happened. And they're starting to be caught by the train behind as well. That's right, Urquhart and Armin Weber as well, making it a 6-car train.
And just showing what kind of results you can get by just keeping it between the white lines. Just not spinning out. Stefan Schlacher having a good race. And let's see if he can actually stay with Gary Thiel, who's putting a lot of pressure on Marco Kika on the exit of Juncao there. So they go to Arquibancadas. Both these drivers are keeping it under control. Gary Thiel's very close though, Joe.
Yeah, and I'm starting to suspect that Thiel's qualifying was a bit of a bad lap from him, or an error, as he ducks it up the inside of Kika, coming down into the Senna S. Kika with a slide, and I think that's going to give it up to Gary Thiel, who now moves to P4. Clearly, that qualifying was not representative of the number 5 car.
Let's see if Stefan Slager can profit from this, because Kika had a bad run through the center as because of that overtake. I think that the Austrian driver is just too far. He takes a look on the inside, though, very brave under braking, puts it on the apex, and actually passes the Finn. What a great move from Stefan there.
Yeah, big credit to Steph, because he didn't even swing wide to try and shove Kika out. He gave him space. Nicely done to give him P5, and this is bunching things up even more as Matt Wright is now looking to overtake Marco Kika as well.
Another driver that is in the walls, Dave Cohen, that was on the braking zone of the Ciudad del Lago, turn 4. He's locking it up, spinning. He can continue, however. Loses a few positions in the process.
It is a hot day out on track here at Interlagos. I'm sure they're wishing that they had rain already to help cool things down, or even just some of the clouds to try and come in, but no such luck today as you see this train of cars climb up the hill around the tricky, fast left-handers. And up ahead of them, Gary Thiel absolutely stretching away, looking to try to run down Olenek, who currently sits in the final spot on the podium.
Look on top of the screen, you could see it flash by over Triangulate, setting the pace at the moment. Quickest lap of the race with a 30.7. More interestingly, he has cut down the gap to Michel Dunion in front of him to only half a second. He's around half a second per lap quicker as the French driver as well. So the Norwegian is really the one who's profiting at the moment from all the disaster in front. He's trying to run down the Frenchman.
And he's doing a good job of it right now, I'd say. Keeping him within half a second. I'd say we got a race on our hands. While we wait for this to bubble up, I think we've got Mick Claridge waiting to talk to us a little bit about what happened. Mick, we saw a little bit of your exclamation in the chat. It looks like you got a little distracted there on the first lap.
Hello, Joe. You all right? Yeah, a bit, mate. Yeah, that was so annoying. I couldn't believe I got pole position on that in qualifying. Michel's been so quick. I mean, I was expecting him to be in the 29s in that session in qualifying. And yeah, it was funny. I really, really wanted to have a good race with him today because we were sort of quite close on race pace. So it would have been a good battle there. And I knew I was running a slightly higher tyre pressure than him at the start there. So for him to keep up with me at the start, I knew it was going to be like a real hard battle. And then, yeah, I'll tell you, my arms were shaking on the grid, you know. I was just getting ready for it to go. And then, oh, man, I come around that last corner and I just looked in the mirror and at the same time the right rear went on the grass. Can't believe I've done that. You wouldn't believe how much I've practiced for this today.
I saw you had done some practice starts as well to get ready for this one as we watch from Matt Wright's view here in the battle for 5th place. So I take it you've at least had a few other races so far this week to make up for that, or is this your one chance?
No, we've had 2. We had one on Thursday, which I was just about lucky enough to win. Roman was and overall pretty quick on Thursday. And then, oh no, sorry, I did. Yeah, I missed the last night one. I missed the Friday race. So yeah, so that's it for me for the season, man.
Oh, that is a shame that that's how it ends for you, but commiserations. We'll see how things play out because Olenek right now running 3rd, and we'll talk to Mick a little bit later, who has DNF'd so far in this race in the very first lap. Looking on screen, that battle between the likes of Urquhart, Wright, Kika, and Schlacher continues its intensity. They may have lost Gary Thiel, but Schlacher is currently at the head of the train trying to withstand immense pressure.
Yeah, and the good thing about Stefan at the moment is just he is quick at all the right places. He's not giving any opportunity to Kika or Wright behind him to try and overtaking maneuver. At the same time, they have dropped Armin Weber as well. He was one of the drivers that seemed to catch up a little bit to this train of cars. However, Armin Weber is not quick enough to close down the gap to Philippe Urquhart to make it a 5-car battle. At the same time, Matt Wright was taking a look on the inside of Marco Kika. Both their lines are compromised through the center S, but Matt Wright has closed down the gap to only 1 car length. He has a great run there over the Reta Oposta. all the way on the inside now. Can he brake later? Can he do the same thing as Stefan did a few laps ago? No, he has to brake slightly earlier. So Kika goes back to that position. But now Philippe Burkhardt will have a little bit more momentum as they descend down to the Interlagos.
Ready on board with Philip now. Watching ahead on Matt Wright. And a big slide from Wright into the horseshoe. But looks like he's able to hold on to it. Now they get into the slow, technical second half of the lap. They're not missing anything up front. Trengrade's fallen back slightly. Olenek hasn't caught them. Gary Thiel's still in a bit of no man's land ahead of these four where most of the action is. And behind all of this, we have had an immense amount of attrition. Haycox, Bruno, Claridge, Pavlowski, Rodriguez, and Good all have DNF'd so far.
Yeah, we started with 22. We only have 14 drivers on track. And that actually means that several drivers, as Michel Dudillon on top of the screen, actually sets the quickest lap of the race with a 30.6. So he is entering the pace that over Trangerade had a few laps ago. But all the attrition means that there's several drivers that are currently driving way higher than they started, including Dave Cohen and Steve Kitzman. We can maybe put some emphasis on those two drivers. They're driving around at P12, P13. Dave Cohen got by Steve Kitzman earlier in the lap, so he's now to P12. Both these drivers gaining a quick calculation. They're 8 and 9 positions today respectively. So I think that both these drivers will be very happy with what they accomplished in Brazil. I don't think they have the pace at the moment to close down the gap to Colin Coker, but they're having a nice battle between the two of them.
What we've watched so far, if it's any indication, we're not done with incidents yet. I think there might be some more drivers that fall by the wayside. They come down to complete another lap, but we switch back up to the battle for P5. Schlacker still ahead of Kika, still ahead of Wright, still ahead of Urquhart. Nobody able to make any passes stick quite yet. One mistake could send any of these four tumbling.
It's interesting to see. It might be visually, but it almost looks like the gaps are getting closer and closer in this four-car train. And Stefan Schlager is having more difficulty keeping the rest behind him. Looking at Stefan's pace, he is trying his best, however. His last lap time was at 32.4. That was his quickest lap of the race. Behind them, Marco Kika is getting very close. The gap between them as they go on the start-finish straight. The beginning of the start-finish straight is brought down to roughly 4 car lengths. You see that Philippe Burkhardt is a little bit too far to try and move, but Marco Kika and Matt Wright are getting closer. A little bit too far. They have to do it under braking. As you could see with that overtaking maneuver that Stefan did a few laps ago, Joe, that the Austrian is really strong under braking. If Marco Kika wants to get by, he has to find another way.
Well, he's certainly trying. Unfortunately, nothing's working quite yet. Look at them snake their way down the Retta Aposta. And a little bit of a duck inside, but nothing serious from Matt Wright. He gets back in line. Kika gets awful close to the back of Schlacker through that corner, but unfortunately his momentum interrupted means he falls back once more. Something of a stalemate happening here in the mid-pack.
A little bit of elastic. The cars get pulled together and then drive away from each other. Now a little quick update about the lead battle. Over Trangerade a few laps ago was closing down the gap to Michel Dudillon to under half a second. At the moment on top of the screen you can see 1.6 seconds between the two of them. That's mostly over Trangerade losing pace. He was doing 30s consistently for 4 laps in a row. Last time around, however, 31.4 means that he loses quite a bit of time to Michel Dudillon. Well, on his turn is trying to answer that, coming across the line another 30.8 for Michel Dudillon. Over Trangerade at 31.0, so it looks like the Frenchman is finding more and more pace here.
He's being pushed, though. We saw on screen coming out of the Subidos dos boxes, he got a little sideways, and they're doing 160, 170 miles an hour coming out of there, so that's no small thing to get a little sideways. Had a pass for P12. I think that was Kitzman and Cohen. Let's see, where did this happen? Oh, this was a mistake from Cohen, it looks like.
Yeah, the run down towards Decido Talaco. Cohen just braked too little, it seems like. You can see it here on screen. He is actually, he's very lucky to not hit the wall, or at least being able to continue. He did hit the wall, yeah, you're absolutely right. He hit it perpendicular with the wall, so it might not have too much damage. He loses one position though. And he's being put under pressure immediately by David Sanchez, who is close on the gap to him.
Oh, and Kika finally got it done on Schlacher. This is the replay. As we come back live, there was a little bit of an attempt from Matt Wright, but it didn't work out. Schlacher stays in 6th place. He's able to stop the bleeding before he loses any more. This is, I believe, I want to say the only second race, at least only the second race this season that Stefan has run here in the Lotus 49. So he is adapting very well to this series.
Yeah, let's see if he can actually keep up the pace, because you're absolutely right, Joe. Until now, he has really been impressive with his pace, with his consistency in his cars. But you can see now Marco Kika just streaking away from him. Matt Wright very close as well. 3-4 car legs between the two. Stefan not defending the inside. Matt Wright can take a look there, and under braking, he is very, very strong. Matt Wright putting it side by side in the sand as he's a little bit sideways. Can't stay there, however, in the second turn to the right. Stefan Schlacher completely cuts him off. Gets back to the apex. Gets that position back. Matt Wright doesn't get the momentum out of the corner as he wants. And luckily for them in the front, Michael Kika had a bad run through the center as well. Slid a little bit. That means that the thing cannot drive away. But heavy battling again. Matt Wright just throwing his car sideways through the Descido del Lago. Interestingly, Philip Urquhart behind him is just staying there. He's not really putting his nose in any of these battles, Joe. He's just waiting and seeing what happens.
Some confident moves from Stefan Schlacher through the Senna S, and that keeps him in 6th place. The good news for these drivers is that even though it is very hot out on the track, it is very consistent. It's been staying right at 104, 103 degrees Fahrenheit, so they're not really getting any wildly swinging temperatures. Unfortunately, the non-wildly swinging temperature is not really desirable for good racing. As you can see up at the top, Michel Dudillon dealing with it well, sets another fastest lap, extends it to 2.5 seconds over Ove Trangarade now.
What a consistency from the Frenchman, just getting quicker and quicker every time. And it's actually interesting to compare that with Ove Trangarade, who after his streak of quick laps where he was comfortably in the 130s, is actually getting a little bit slower with now descending into 31.4 again. Maybe it's a little bit setup-wise as well, that Michel's setup is just a little bit more adapted to the current temperatures. And you can see on screen the gap 2.8 is just increasing lap after lap.
So we watched from on board there. I think Stefan Schlacher isn't done with the defense that he's having to do, because Matt Wright is continuing to just really pressurize the poor Austrian. As they come out towards Ferradura, he finally backs off him a little bit. For a long time, he was within about a car length.
It's interesting to see what Stefan is doing, though. It almost seems like he's putting his nose in every opportunity that he gets, and I don't know actually what he's trying to do. If he's trying to put Marco Kika under a little bit of pressure to make sure that the Finn doesn't forget he's there, or he's just trying to avoid the dive bomb from Matt Wright on the inside. But he's not taking the optimal line in every corner that he encounters.
Ooh. And we had a problem with Cohen. This was in the Senna S. He was in a battle with Sanchez. Did he get clipped here? Oh, might have been a little net code from what it looked like on there.
It almost seems like Cohen already lost control before they got close to each other. We go to another replay of that incident from above this time. You can see there that Dave and Cohen already start sliding a little bit to the inside before David is there. And it wouldn't be the first time for Dave this race. He also had that problem fuel at the beginning of the race in Descido del Lago. Luckily for Cohen, he can continue, but he's last on the track at the moment, driving around in P14.
So we've jumped back then to right chasing Schlacher. Now we've let Mick hang out in the booth to kind of give a little bit of a look at how we do things back here, as he's been watching the race with us. And Mick, you said you had a lot of practice this week. Did you get to practice in conditions like this with it being this hot? And I mean, what is it doing to the cars with these sorts of temperatures on track? Oh, it's on screen. Sorry, Mick. We'll get to you in a second. Schlacher gets run into from behind by Matt Wright. That turns them around. They both lose positions to Philip.
That was waiting for that to happen, to be honest. Stefan Schlacker defending the apex of that corner, and almost looks like Matt Wright just brakes a little bit too late. Didn't expect the speed Stefan was taking through that corner. Taps him around. Now it looks like Stefan's race is over because he's crabbing off the track at the moment. On board with Matt Wright, you can see it here. The car just closing way too quickly. Taps Stefan around.
That is unfortunate for the Austrian after running such a good race. So Matt Wright falls to 7th, Philip up to 6th, and Marco Kika retains his P5. Mick, back to the question for you. We were asking about the weather and how it affects the car out here. Did you get any experience in 100+ temperatures?
Yeah, most of the races we did have been, or most of the practice sessions have been this hot, So everyone's pretty much used to it. I was just sitting on board with Matt there when he ran into Stefan there. He might have a bit of nose damage, but I don't think his steering's bent, so he's going to carry on. But yeah, I think that was a typical thing that happens when you're running in hot weather. You lose the front end or you're pushing hard, and you try and stop this car and it just carries on going, So but like I say, everyone should be used to this now. There's been a lot of sessions at this hot. So it's surprising, really.
Well, that is unfortunate that that one little mistake was so costly, especially considering what you're saying. It is so common. As we take a look at our leaders, Michel Dudignon is this traffic that he's hitting. It looks like that is Steve Kitzman that has been passed, and now Ove Trangrade has to make his way by. I think Kitzman should be able to pull out of the way on the Retta Aposta. And whoa! Ove not having a fun time trying to get by. Kitzman now lifts on the straight, lets him through, but not before costing about a second.
And that's actually the second time it happened, because Michel Dudignon suffered the same thing with Steve Kitzman. We go to a replay of that incident. Let's just see exactly what happened with Ove Trangrade. He just expects the car to go to the inside, and then the closing speed is really rapid, just avoids him. Now, what I mentioned half a minute ago, Michel Dudignon tried to do the same thing and get by Steve Kitzman. That was in Shunkau trying to go on the start-finish straight. And at that point, Steve Kitzman got very loose, and Michel Dudignon had to step on the brakes to avoid him. Twice in half a lap, but Steve Kitzman gave quite a scare to our leaders in P1 and P2.
Certainly did. We have managed to find at least one more stool, because we've pulled Stefan Schlacker into the booth as he's come to chat with us about what happened in the race. Steph, we're sad to see you here this early, because it looked like you were having a really fun time in that battle for P5.
Yeah, it was a fun battle. It was. I knew that I'm not going to be staying up here because I didn't have the speed, simple enough. I just got up there because of all the wrecks that happened. And I was somehow able to avoid that. Kept it pointing in the right direction. Keep it on the black stuff because first race for the sponsors in the Lotus 49 for Unexpected Shots and Kuroyo. Wanted to give them a little bit of a show. Just sad to have it rear-ended like that on a pretty much no-brainer there.
It seemed like you were saying, you were talking to us before the race, you kept finding time everywhere. Even in your qualifying, you had a huge jump in time just to give you positions on the grid. Was that continuing in the race? Were you finding little bits here and there?
Oh, yeah, for sure. My fastest lap time was in the middle there with a 32.4. And also have to apologize to you, who I net-coded with. Very unlucky there on the start at the end of the first lap. I was able to find more and more time, and I got more and more comfortable with the car. That's just how I am. The longer the race goes, the more comfortable, the more secure, and the more steady I get with the car. So would have been interesting to see what happens with it, but yeah, now I have to sit here in the box and watch the end of the race from here.
Well, commiserations, Steph, and hopefully we'll see it next week. That's Stefan Schlacker, another one of our DNFs today. We have had a few cars come back out after the repairs. Haycox has returned, Ang has returned, and Daniel Sadro has gotten back out on track. Everybody else has called it quits early.
And the fact that Andrew Eng is back out on track, that's really a smart decision for Eng, because viewers might remember from the beginning of the broadcast when we looked at the standings in the Formula 2 Championship, Eng is fighting with Colin Coker for P4 in that championship. Now Colin is actually having a good race. He's still driving around P10, last car on the lead lap. He gained 9 positions and is on his way for a good haul of points. And Andrew Eng kind of has to, well, bring that car out again, try to win a few more positions before the finish flag drops, so he can score more points as well and just hang on to Colin Coker in his rise through the standings.
Even if you're towards the back of the pack, there is stuff to fight for in this series. Now, we've mentioned it a couple times, and there was an infamous incident that happened for the lead here at Interlagos in the Grand Prix Legends Series between Mick Claridge himself and Michel Dudignon. I believe we have that clip that we can link in the YouTube chat if you want to check it out and go and glance at that either after the race or just take a quick look at it. It's a pretty short clip. Happened here along this stretch here as we watch Michel Dudignon come along to cross the start-finish line. The two of them coming side by side. And since we've got Mick in the booth, we can get some firsthand insight on that incident. I'm sure that's still probably fresh in your mind, Mick. I mean, from your perspective, what exactly caused that between you and Michel?
It was his fault, Joe.
Easy to say without him in here, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it was funny because as soon as you mentioned it, I started smiling because I remember it like it was in this race, you know. Yeah, we just went for the same part of the track. I mean, you know yourself how you know, many races me and Michel have had against each other, and it just so happens that this track we're pretty close together in lap times, you know. I'm just watching his lap times now and I'm just thinking, yeah, we would have been pretty close here today, so it would have been a good fight. But yeah, that was just if either of us get a run on each other, we'll try and block each other, you know, afterwards or right in the middle of the move, and we both done the same thing at the same time. That's all that happened there.
It was certainly a shock. I remember Johan as well. You got on the mic really loud and quick when that happened. I think we were both absolutely flabbergasted at what had happened. It wound up giving Dave Price a surprise victory in the end. Unfortunately for Ove Trangerade, who we see running in second place, he doesn't have anybody to run into Michel Dudignon today, and he continues to drop. It is 4.7 seconds now, Johan.
Let's just go, maybe we can go to a quick replay of Michel Dudignon as he went to Arquibacadas this lap, because he almost did the same thing as you did, Mick. Just very wide, very sliding through that long corner, putting the right side tires on the grass, and luckily for the Frenchman, he kept it in a straight line. Ooh. But that was a really risky maneuver from Michel Dudignon, especially when you look at the gap that he has to over Trangerade, almost 5 seconds. Almost throwing it away there. Now, one thing that I was actually looking at as well was the championship standings, the result today. What will this mean? I think that one of the big winners, Joe, today will be Rob Olenek. He will finish on the podium in P3. He will finish behind over Trangerade, who will gain a few points on him. But Rob Olenek will close down the gap to Mick. And like Mick said, if he won't be able to make the other races this season, Rob Olenek will just kind of strengthen the lead that he has in the championship. And especially to Gary Thiel, who's chasing him there. He beats him today at Interlagos. I think that Rob will be very happy with what he accomplishes here. Well,
while the start of the season may have looked like it was going to be a rout for Mick, it's going to certainly tighten up if Mick is missing out, as Rob Olenek is not resting on his laurels either. He's been sliding it through a number of corners as I've been watching him here on screen. Let's see if he's able to keep it straight through. Oh, he's way off the apex there through the junction. Well, that's certainly not going to help his case, but the good news for him is he's got 13 seconds back to Gary Thiel.
I'll just say, Joe, he did actually hit me as I crashed. He went underneath me and the car just went flying after he went through, so I don't know if he's got damage or what.
That might be the cause of what's creating these slides that we're seeing. It's a little bit smoother here through the Senna S, now through the Curva de Sol, one of the trickier acceleration zones onto the Reta Aposta. And he keeps it planted and pointed forward. For now, with 3 laps to go left in this race, and though the drivers have spread apart, oh, and there's another slide. We just went off screen off of Rob Olenek as he came through the Descida del Lago. It certainly looks like he might have damage the way he's driving today.
A lot of cars are having trouble with keeping it on the gray stuff, so to speak. We see a replay of what happened with Rob Olenek. Just a quick update that Dave Cohen actually retired because he went over the incident limit just now. The driver that was driving around the P13 is out of the race. Good catch, however, from Rob Olenek, Joe, to keep it in a straight line. With the retirement of Dave Cohen, that means that drivers like Daniel Cedro, maybe I don't think Andrew Eng will be on time, but Daniel Cedro will be able to gain another position before the race is over. That will elevate him to P13.
I'm trying to think of if we've ever seen anybody run afoul of the incident limit in the Lotus 49 series. This isn't a car that you usually have that happen.
It's most of the time, if you take an incident point and you go off track, then you lose the car in general. So, well, to be fair, we saw Dave Cohen have a few moments in the race. He spun in turn 1, he spun at one point in turn 4, so he already had some incident points scored there. And that time around, he just went wide into Descida del Lago, and that was 17 incident points at the end for his race.
This is our leader, stretching it out now to 5 seconds over Ove Trangerade. And Ove Trangerade himself 10 seconds over Rob Olenek. With a lap and a half left, it's looking like things have settled out unless we see any more big errors like that on track.
Yeah, the whole field is stretched out. Basically, the smallest gap that we have between some drivers is around 4 or 5 seconds. But I think one driver that we haven't looked at a lot today, we might put the camera on for a little bit, is Grant Petullo. Grant Petullo is driving around in P9 at the moment. Now, Grant Petullo, why do we put the camera on him? He is our hard charger of today. He wins 9 positions, still on the lead lap. At the same time, he will win, if I calculated correctly, the Formula 2 race here today. It just puts more pressure on Hugh Haycox and Hideki Kofisto. So we mentioned in the pre-show how well his result was at Silverstone, winning the race there. He's doing the same thing here at Interlagos. And it seems like for the final races of the season, Joe, Grant Petullo will be one of the drivers to watch in that Formula 2 Championship.
Michel Durignan has a scant 1 win so far this season. He's about to make it 2. He just got the white flag, working his way around. Another half second given to Ove Trangerade. He is screaming around this track. Michel Durignan running in those 130s. A few on the 131s on a couple of those laps, having to deal with those scary moments. Hopefully no more here on the final circuit around this course. The Frenchman looks like he is going to add to his tally of many wins here in the Grand Prix Legends Series. Even though he hasn't had a lot this season, he's missed a lot of races, and he's also had a little bit of bad luck so far this season. I'm not sure if he's hot dogging or if he's actually struggling here today as he comes through the Ducks Bill. Keeps it pointed forward regardless. Now up to the junction. All he's got to do is just bring it home nice and smooth. Around the corner, getting onto the throttle. Around the Subidos dos boxes one last time. And I think he is showing off a little bit as he gives a little bit of a slide. Across the line, that means victory for Michel Durignan here in Brazil. Trangerade follows him home to second place, and Rob Olenek gains a lot of points on that championship battle to finish out the podium, Johan.
Yeah, he's probably the moral victor here today. He will feel very, very happy with his P3 position. Behind him, Gary Thiel, he's currently coming out of Juncao across Arquibancadas. He will finish this race in P4, winning 5 positions in the progress after that kind of poor qualifying start that he had. Good result from him. And Marco Kika, he will be the last driver in the top 5. He had such an amazing battle with Matt Wright, Philip Urquhart, Stefan Slager. And in the end of those 4 drivers, he is the one who comes out on top. He will finish in the top 5 as well, Marco Kika.
Honestly, one thing that we hadn't noticed is not only the attrition, but the difficulty in keeping pace up around here means only 9 cars out of our 22 starters even finish on the lead lap. The last one going to be Grant Petullo in the number 13 to finish in that 9th position. As the rest of them come across the line, there's really no battles left. So we're going to head to break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll come back with the official results as well as driver interviews. If you stick around on screen, you'll see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC. Welcome back to Interlagos. It was round 9 here today for the Grand Prix Legends Series, and Michel Dudignan returns for his sporadic attendance to take another victory, his second of the season. Ove Trangrade and Rob Olenek are the ones fighting for the championship, though they get second and third, and they still will probably be relatively happy, we think, with that, because their main rival, Mick Claridge, wrecked out early in the race. Gary Teal gets himself fourth, coming from a bad qualifying, up from 9th on the grid. That was a nice run for the number 5 car. Marco Kika getting a top 5 is followed home by Philip Urquhart. What a climb for him, going from 11th to 6th. Matt Wright as well, 13th to 7th for him. And then Armin Weber, 14th to 8th. A number of drivers really taking advantage of the attrition that happened out there. Grant Patullo taking 9th place. And then how about Colin Coker from 19th to 10th on the grid, Johan?
Yeah, great results from all of them. We continue using mountain boots behind the top 10 as well, because Steve Kutzman wins 11 positions from P22 to P11. Good result from him. even though he finishes one lap down. He's just in front of David Sanchez. Daniel Cedro, he was one of those cars that was involved in one of the many incidents in this race. He got it back out on track, however. Finishes the race in P13 in front of Dave Cohen, one of the drivers that actually managed to go over the incident limit and was forced to stop the race because of that. Andrew Eng finishes and starts race in P15 just in front of Stefan Slager. Had a good battle in the midfield. After his crash, he is classified in P16. Hugh Haycox will be talking with him in just a moment. He comes home in P17. Mick Claridge, we heard of him before, classified in P18. There's a few drivers behind him. Andres Bruno, Antonio Rodriguez, Roman Pawlowski, and Don Good. They all finished the race between P19 and P22.
We've got one of our top 5 drivers with us, though, Gary Teal, with a 4th place. Gary, talk to us a little bit about before the race, though, the qualifying. What happened that sent you back down to 9th when the green dropped?
I don't know. I've got no idea. I'd like to know myself.
Well, you made good on it. Obviously, you had a little bit of help by avoiding some of the chaos that happened with that wreck at the start. So once you found yourself moving forward through the race, what was your goal in this one?
Well, I kind of got lucky on that first lap. I really should have ended on the first lap because I don't know if you saw it on your end, but I passed through Angelica. So I should have been gone there. But I got back up to closer to what my normal speed is, and I was able to pass, I think, Daniel and Mika. And from there on, I knew I wouldn't catch the guys up front, so I was more or less just managing the laps, managing the gap.
You, Rob, and Ove seem like you've got a nice little tussle in the points battle going on, especially since Mick says that he won't be able to come back for the remainder of the season. Are you eyeing the top spot in the championship at all, or do you think that's too much of a stretch for this one?
That's too much of a stretch. I got lucky this week beating Rob in a couple of races, but he's back up to speed now, and I'm not going to catch those guys in front. So I'll be happy with the top 5 or so, I guess. I'll try, though.
Yeah, and as we've seen, you just cannot predict what's going to happen in this series. Well, regardless, congratulations for getting 4th today. That was a fantastic ride for 9th on the grid, sir.
All right, thanks.
It was Gary Teal, 4th place today. And then I believe Johan has caught up with Hugh Haycox, who recovered to a 17th position.
Yeah, you welcome to the booth. Good to talk with you. Not really the race that you wanted, probably. What exactly happened from your point of view? You were driving in a very good position, good qualifying, and then you came to the second to last corner.
Yeah, that was kind of a bit messy. I kind of saw just a crash ahead of me, and I thought it was a lot bigger than it was. I slowed down way too much. I kind of jumped on the brakes, and I looked in my rearview mirror after I jumped on the brakes, and I saw Gary coming at me really quickly, got a bit scared, and turned left. Yeah, I turned left towards Mick, trying to avoid Gary, and then I lost it just on my own because of the camber of the road, which was a bit of a shame, but, happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was, of course, a big shame to see you there because of the amazing qualifying that you had. You qualified P7. Where do you think you could have ended up if this wouldn't have happened? Were you confident to get a P5 position, move yourself even more forward on the grid?
I don't know. Because I did the Thursday race, and I really dislike this track in any car. So I probably would have spun it. But yeah, Gary's a lot quicker than me. That's for sure. I don't know about Marco, but probably.
You're one of the drivers that we have put a lot of emphasis on this season because of your great results in the Formula 2 Championship. You're still leading, I think. You're still in front of Hideko Corfisto with 3 more races to go this season. How confident are you that you can keep yourself on top in that championship?
I'm not too sure. I've had a streak of bad races, let's say. So I'm hoping it stops now and I can get some good results at the end. But yeah, it's been a pretty interesting World Championship, really, in the F2.
We have Road America, you have Indy, you have Montreal. Which of those 3 are you most looking forward to?
Probably Road America. I really like that track. I'm not sure about the chicane, but we'll see.
Very good. Well, I'll put an asterisk next to your name for that race. Then thanks for talking with us, and we hope to see you again next week with a little bit more of luck.
Yeah, thanks, guys. See ya.
That was
That was you, Haycox, crashing out. Unfortunately, yeah, it was a shame to see what happened with him, Joe. After his good qualifying, to see how it ended up, he is classified, comes home in P17.
certainly, Carr didn't look all that great in our post-race footage there that we were showing of poor Hugh. But that's going to close us out for today. Lotus 49 community gets another big thank you from us for bringing us back for a season of coverage as well. iRacing, we'd like to thank them for putting us on the iRacing Esports Network. Make sure when you get the opportunity to subscribe. All you got to do is go to their YouTube page and click the big red button. Additional thanks go to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. And we'd like to thank June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Johan, Amjad, and Dougie, with a big thank you going out to Mick Claridge for joining us in the booth today. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check us out on social media. We're on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. The next race, as we mentioned, we're going to Road America, but it is going to the chicane version. This will be the first time we've ever broadcast that version. I don't think I've ever even raced that version, to be honest. That'll be Saturday, May 18th at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.